Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Ace Your MRCP. I am Dr. Aparajita Roy and today I will discuss exclusive last minute PACES tips that you must know before appearing for your exam. So let's get started. Now the last week leading up to your PACES exam is the most crucial. That is when your preparation is at its peak and you may be feeling anxious or you may be even looking forward to your exam. Now don't worry too much if you can't book a study leave because there's not really much studying or not really much theory that you need to know. I know some of my colleagues who actually do extra shifts to keep their clinical practice going. However, what you can do is probably make a list of last minute revisions that you may need to do the day before your exam. That may be different for different candidates. For example, for me, the DVLA regulations is something that I always struggle with. And I made sure that the day before my exam, I read up the DVLA guidelines. Now, in my communication station, I got a case of a secondary seizure and the surrogate asked me how long was she not allowed to drive for. Thank God I prepared the DVLA regulations the day before. Make your own list. It can be the causes of bronchiectasis or the causative organisms for infective endocarditis. Don't make the list too big, just focus on the crucial topics that you need to revise. The second important thing that you should do in the last week of your PACES preparation is familiarize yourself with the test center, especially if you are taking the exam in a different city. Book your flight and train tickets and make your hotel arrangements, preferably arrive at that city a day or two before your exam is due. If possible, make a trip to the exam center to familiarize yourself with the distance from your accommodation or the route that leads up to the exam center. It may be so that your PACES center is different from the actual hospital main building. So it is important that you're aware of the exact location before your actual exam day. Make sure you get ample rest, have a good night's sleep before your exam day, look refreshed, look confident and appear for your exam. Now on the day of your exam, many of you ask me what to wear for the exam. Wear comfortable clothing and wear formal clothing. Pay attention to your shoes. Don't wear trainers or sneakers. Wear covered shoes. If you want to wear a tie, make sure you tuck it in your shirt. In the NHS, there is a universal policy of bare below the elbow, which means that your sleeves should be rolled up to the elbow. You're not allowed to wear a watch or a bracelet or chunky rings. One wedding ring is allowed. Now, if you're taking the exam in the UK, you have to follow this rule by default. For international centers, I would recommend that you still follow the bare below the elbow policy. That would make a good impression on your British examiner. But remember, you would need a watch to examine the patient's pulse or the respiratory rate. You can use one of the pocket watches as used by the nurses in the NHS, or you can wear your watch around your belt near to your waist. Now on the day of your exam, please do not be late for your exam. Your admission document will mention that the reporting time is roughly 1 hour before the exam is due to start. At least reach half an hour early. Don't make the mistake that I did. My exam was on a Sunday morning. I completely underestimated the London traffic. I was stuck in central London traffic and reached my exam center just 10 minutes to spare. You can imagine my stress and anxiety levels at that time, and I don't want that to happen to any of you. You need that extra time not only to calm yourself or familiarize yourself with the exam center, but you will also need to undergo an ID check. Apart from that, there is some bit of paperwork that needs to be done before your actual exam starts. The exam organizers will give you 10 OMR sheets to fill up, which are your actual PACES mark sheets. You have to populate them with your name, RCP number and exam center number. Not only that, you'll also have to circle the black boxes with a pencil. These things take time, so please make sure you reach the exam center at least half an hour to 1 hour to spare. Also, don't forget to carry the 2 documents that are absolutely required for your exam. The first is the admission document, which is like your admit card for the exam, that will be sent to you by the RCP a few weeks before your exam. Take a printout of that, put your name and signature in it and carry it with you on your exam day to the exam center. The second thing that you must carry is a photo ID. If you are taking the exam in international centers, that should be your passport. If you are taking it in your home country, you can use any national photo ID. Again, don't make the mistake that I did. I always thought, who will forget to take that one ID that is required? And it so happened that I forgot to carry my passport on my exam day. So not only was I late, to my utter horror, when I opened my bag, I saw I have completely forgotten to take my ID with me. Luckily, I had my NHS badge and my biometric residence permit with me, and those were accepted as valid photo ID in the exam center. But make sure you don't make the same mistake that I did. Now let's talk about what are the instruments that you should take with yourself during your exam. The one thing that you should never ever forget to carry is your stethoscope. It may sound silly, you might think who would forget to carry their own stethoscope, but this is not that uncommon, especially if you're starting your exam with the talking stations. You may leave your stethoscope in your bag outside, and only when you reach the clinical stations that you realize that your stethoscope is not with you. Now, many candidates have this question, which is the right stethoscope to take with you on your exam day? I would say any stethoscope that you're comfortable with and use in your day-to-day clinical practice will do. Earlier, I used to use the classic 3 Littmann stethoscope, but I always found it difficult to hear the murmurs clearly, especially murmurs of aortic regurgitation. I used to always be confused whether it's actually there or I'm imagining it. I later bought this Littmann cardiology stethoscope, which I would definitely recommend to all of you because it has a very good clarity of sound. Now indeed, in my PACES exam, in my cardiology station, I got a case of mechanical aortic valve, but it did not have any associated murmur. Thank God I used the cardiology stethoscope because I was absolutely confident that there was no murmur. Indeed, my examiner double-checked and asked me, are you sure that there is no murmur? But I was absolutely confident. Now I know many of you may be thinking, but these stethoscopes do not have a bell and a diaphragm. Littmann cardiology series do not have that distinction between bell and a diaphragm because they say that the single chest piece, when used with lighter or more pressure, can act as a bell as well as a diaphragm. Their variations in the chest pieces are adult and pediatric types. Many of you may think that older examiners might have a problem with it, but I can assure you that my British examiner was quite elderly and he did not have a problem with the bell or the diaphragm of the stethoscope as long as my answer was correct. So if you have the cardiology stethoscope and if you are familiar with it, I would say definitely go for it. Another instrument that you may carry with you is an ophthalmoscope. An ophthalmoscope will definitely be by the bedside if fundus examination is a part of your cranial nerve or station 5. However, if you are more confident using your own handheld ophthalmoscope, I would say it's worth carrying it with you. Everything else, say a tendon hammer, cotton, red hat pin, all of them will be by the bedside, already organized by the exam coordinators. Do carry a small watch like this, which acts as a stopwatch, or it may also tell you how much time is left during your talking stations. This can be an absolute lifesaver, guys, because During your history and communication station, the time flies very, very quickly. You will not even realize where the time has gone when suddenly the examiner tells you just have 2 minutes left. Carrying a watch like this, not only for your station 2, station 4, but also for your station 5, can help you time yourself, can help you pace your conversation, and you will be more in control when you know that by this time I have talked about these points and I have this much time left to talk about these points. This is a must have, and this can be definitely a lifesaver for your talking stations. Now, when the exam starts, take a moment to calm your nerves, brace yourself, chin up, square your shoulders and take the plunge. One thing, however, that you must never ever do is argue with your examiner. If you are not sure about a certain finding, say so. For example, in my abdominal station, my patient had a huge ascites and I could absolutely not make out whether the patient had a spleen or not. My examiner definitely asked me that point, could you palpate a spleen? And I answered truthfully saying, I'm not very sure. When I looked at my feedback, actually the examiner had written that the spleen was not fully discernible. Also, be confident in your findings. If you have definitely found something or not found something and you're sure about that, say so. If the examiner double checks you, don't always feel jittery and don't say, well, it could be, well, it could not be. It might be so that the examiner is just double checking you, like it so happened with my cardiology station. Whatever you do, don't argue with your examiner. Now, the next important thing is, do not try to get any feedback from your examiner. They are under instructions not to divulge their emotions in front of the candidate. If they are nodding along and smiling, that does not always mean that you're right. And if they are being poker-faced, that does not mean that you're wrong. Don't try to be your own judge, especially during the examination. You may have heard the saying that it is very important to put the performance of your previous station behind you as you move forward in your stations in the carousel. Now, it is very important that you don't criticize yourself or not judge your own performance as you're in the exam carousel. Trust me, you'll get plenty of time to do that once your exam is over. But don't do that while you're in the performance. Remember, the game is still going on and it's not over yet. After the exam is over, take a moment to relax. Please avoid the temptation, though, to share confidential information about the exam on public or social media platform. If you read the RCP's Code of Conduct carefully, you would see that they expect you to maintain the confidentiality of the exam, and a serious breach in confidentiality may be seen as misconduct and may lead to cancellation of your candidature. Also, after your exam is over, don't be too harsh on yourself or don't criticize yourself too much, even if something has gone wrong or something was not quite right in your exam. A good practice would be to just reflect on your cases, not only for your own learning, but also, if you teach your juniors at a later date, they could use your first-hand experience as an invaluable guide. But even if in that reflection or that recollection you think you might have messed up with one station, that is not the end of the world. Remember, the PACES mark sheet is so designed that they test a certain clinical skill over several stations. So, if you have messed up in a certain clinical skill, say identifying physical signs over more than one station, yes, that may not be the best of news for you. However, if you have just messed up one station, that does not make a difference to your pass or fail outcome. So, relax. Also, the RCP will send you a feedback form regarding your exam experience at that particular exam center. Be honest and truthful about it. If you think that certain things were not done well, mention that. The RCP takes these feedbacks very carefully. However, if you think that the exam was extremely well organized, then do mention that in your feedback form so that the organizers or volunteers who have put in so much of an effort in arranging the exam also feel motivated to keep doing these PACES sessions over and over again. That's it for today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope the exclusive tips that I shared with you will help you to crack your PACES exam in the very first attempt. All the best, keep studying, stay safe, and ace your MRCP.